Welcome to Module 3, Tools for Doing It Yourself. This is perhaps the most exciting module in the whole course, at least for me, because in this module, I'm really going to be empowering you to figure out how to do it yourself and build your product yourself without having to rely on developers. And I'm going to take you through two tools that you can build web apps with and you can build mobile apps with. So, and both of them are no code, so it's really exciting. So you don't have to learn to code to use any of these. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Bubble. Bubble is my favorite tool for building web apps. You don't need to learn any code. It can connect to other systems using APIs. And APIs are basically just the way that two computers talk to each other. So if my app wants to talk to Google Maps or Stripe or Paystack or basically anybody else who has an API, then I can use an API to do that communication and get data. So for example, let's say I am building a vConnect app and I want people to be able to find the particular businesses. So vConnect is a kind of like a Yellow Pages, kind of like a directory listing of a lot of different businesses. I can talk to, if they have an API, then I can like talk to them to get business information and send that information to Google Maps to get directions to those particular locations. So APIs allow your app to be super flexible, and Bubble natively just lets you connect to them in a very, very simple way that if you can just follow the instructions on how to implement the API, then it walks you through how to do the data, right? And how to get and retrieve that data. It also allows scheduling of tasks, which a lot of no-code builders don't let you do, which is kind of painful, you know, because sometimes you're an app, let's say you do something and you want to bill people monthly, or you want to calculate something monthly for them, or show them like at the end of the month their results. And this is something that needs to be done maybe on the first of every month, or you're building a HR application that needs to calculate salaries at the end of the month. Without being able to schedule that task, you would manually have to go in and do it. But you can schedule tasks weekly, hourly, monthly, daily, depending on the kind of Bubble you're on. So I really, really like that. So Bubble is great, and I'll do a tutorial video after this where you can see how to use it and just how flexible it is. So the next one is Thunkable. So Thunkable is basically the mobile app version of Bubble. They're unrelated companies, but they do kind of the same thing in that you don't have to learn to code. They let you access external APIs. And Thunkable can let you deploy mobile apps for both Android and iOS, which is really cool. You don't have to learn to code. And the great thing about it is that it's all drag and drop. So if you can like use PowerPoint or Canva, then you can use Thunkable. And then it has blocks which you can just like snap into place and say, if this happens, then this happens. And the same thing with Bubble. So Bubble uses workflows and Thunkable uses blocks, but it's the same kind of mental pattern. So those are the two tools that I really, really love for building mobile apps, and web apps. And one more thing about Thunkable. Thunkable actually lets you access device functions. So things like Bluetooth, things like location data, things like the accelerometer, which is a thing that lets you know whether your phone is pointed and if it's upside down, if it's right way up, if it rotates. So it's really, really flexible, and I'd really advise you to use it, or at least just check it out and see what it can do and see if your app can be built using one of these tools. It'll be cheaper, it'll be slightly faster. You may not get it to be exactly what you want. It may not be as smooth and as polished as you want, but that's kind of like the trade-off with being able to build it rapidly and by yourself with only your time as the cost. So these tools are very powerful, but they can't do everything, right? So what if you can't use the builders? Maybe you need some functionality that they just cannot give you. Then you may have to investigate outsourcing options. Like, because if you have to have a native app, because native apps are faster, lighter, and you can control more. So for example, if you need something really custom, like you need to have a custom keyboard, you won't be able to do that with something like Thunkable. Then you may have to like look into specialists, people who build mobile apps, and say, hey, I need you to build my apps. But at the same time, what if you can't afford to outsource? Maybe now is the time to learn to code. There are lots of resources out there to help you learn to code. There's Free Code Camp. There's YouTube. Do not underestimate the power of what you can learn on YouTube. And there are lots of paid courses and boot camps and all these kind of things to help you learn to code that can get you to where you need to be. In general, I don't recommend learning to code just because you want to launch a product. You should learn to code because you want to learn to code. It's a very specific skill set. It would be the equivalent of like trying to become a doctor because you have a cough. It's possible, but you really kind of will cure your cough better faster if you just hire someone to do it for you. So I've kind of like flip-flopped between outsourcing and learning to code or doing it yourself. My final stance is if you can use one of the builders, if you don't already know how to code, use one of the builders. If you can't use the builder, outsource. If outsourcing is too expensive and you're really, really, really passionate, then learn to code. Just know that learning to code properly may take you 6 months before you can even get to the point where you can build something that you can put in a customer's hands. So just have that in the back of your mind. So yeah, so that's the end of Module 3, the tools. In the next section, I will be going through demos on how to use the actual tools. Both tools have tutorials and interactive tutorials that you can use to learn how to use the systems. So the next 2 videos will be completely optional and you can watch them if you like, or you can just skip on to the next part of the course and know that you're going to use the tutorials on these websites to learn. Okay? So looking forward to seeing you in the next video.